according to Florida law, the state was required to videotape their experts' evaluations. Answer, I had been made aware that the state was required to have observers. I don't recall exactly whether that also included recording. Question, okay, you know the state's evaluations were videotaped, right? Answer, I'm aware of that, yes. Question, so you didn't know that, according to Florida law, the state was required to have the examinations, evaluations by their experts videotaped, correct? Answer, I knew that I was informed that they would be observed, that they were required to be observed. Question, okay, but not videotaped? You don't know that? Answer, I don't remember. Question, you don't remember? Answer, I don't remember being told that. Question, okay. Of the 3.5 hours, you met with the defendant for 5 hours, I think you testified yesterday, correct? Answer, yes. Question, and all in one day, right? Answer, yes. Question, yes. And so 3.5 hours, if my math is correct, we're done with testing, correct? Answer, yes. Question, okay. The 5th and the 6th tests that you administered were the finger tapping and the grooved pegboard tests for both the left and the right hand, correct? Answer, I believe that's right. Question, do you need more time? Answer, no, that's about the correct placement in the order as I look at it. Question, okay, so explain to the jury the finger tapping test. Answer, the finger tapping test is essentially you have a device, like a clicker, that you get when somebody goes through turnstiles, and you click to count the number of people, except it's attached to a board, and they are required to tap with their pointer finger as quickly as possible, pressing all the way down, letting it come all the way back up for a period of several seconds, and we repeat that task multiple times. Question, okay, and how long does that test last, the finger tapping? Answer, in total? Question, yes. Answer, probably around 5 or so minutes. Question, okay, and you do that with the left hand and the right hand, correct? Answer, correct. Question, and the finger that you use, depending if you're left-handed or right-handed, is your trigger finger, correct? Answer, regardless of the hand that you use, it's the pointer finger that is used. Question, right. That's what I ask. Whether you're right-handed or left-handed, it's the trigger finger that you use in the finger tapping, correct? Answer, I'll call it the pointer finger, but yes. Question, are you offended by trigger finger? Isn't that what people call that finger? You know, the trigger? Answer, I've always called it the pointer finger. Question, okay. So the grooved pegboard test, would you explain that? Answer, it's again, a motor coordination task where the individual is asked to take a series of pegs. They're shaped kind of like keys and insert them into a series of holes on a board that have the groove for the key portion of the peg that are at different angles. And they have to basically rotate in order to insert the peg into the holes. Question, okay, and how long does that take? Answer, again, depending on the person, approximately 5 minutes. Question, so isn't the grooved pegboard test more sensitive than the finger tapping test? Answer, not necessarily. Question, that's your opinion? Answer, they measure motor coordination in different ways. Question, okay, so would you just say that you think it's more sensitive or you don't think it's more sensitive? Answer, I don't think it's necessarily more sensitive. Question, okay, but on the grooved pegboard, the defendant had an average score, correct? Answer, that's correct. Question, so what was his score on the pointer finger or the trigger finger on his left hand? Answer, it was a T-score of 13, which is in the severely impaired range. Question, okay, and they were the only test for the motor domain that you gave, correct? The finger tapping and the grooved pegboard? Answer, that's correct. Question, okay. So, and the finger tapping with the left finger, the trigger, or the pointer finger on his left hand, that is one of the subtests that you put on your graph below the 2 standard deviations, correct? Answer, yes. Question, okay. So the Ray complex figure, you did not administer that test to the defendant, did you? Answer, that's correct. Dr. Black did. Question, okay. And Dr. Black is a board-certified neurologist? Answer, he's a neuropsychologist. Question, I'm sorry, board-certified neuropsychologist? Answer, I don't know about his certification status. Question, okay. And do you know when Dr. Black did his testing? Answer, he did his testing on April 29th and 30th of 2021. Question, and that was before your test, right? Answer, yes. Question, and Dr. Black was hired by the defense, correct? Answer, yes. Question, okay. So you, in establishing your graph that you've showed to the jury, you used the Ray complex figure test for visual spatial, correct? Answer, yes. Question, and that is the only test that you had on your graph for visual spatial domain, correct? Answer, as I said in indirect, yes. It's one of the iconic tests that we use for visual spatial and is very much a relevant test for FASD evaluation. Question again, so it's clear. That is the only test that you had in the visual spatial domain, correct? Answer, that's noted on the graph. Question, so the answer is yes? Answer, yes. Question, okay. And you also use the Ray complex figure for memory domain too, right? Answer, there are other portions of that test that access memory, yes. Question, okay. And those two are on your graph too, correct? Answer, correct. Question, so you use the Ray complex figure for visual spatial and also memory, correct? Answer, yes. There are different portions of the test. One that is purely visual spatial construction, and two that are memory related. Question, okay. And so the other test I would like to talk to you about is the auditory consonant trigrams test, right? Answer, okay. Question, okay. And would you explain to the jury that test? Answer, as I said on direct, it is a working memory task where you're having to do two things at the same time. Remember some letters and do some math calculations. And you're doing those two tasks at the same time for different lengths of time. Sometimes very short of an intermediate length and then of a longer duration. And so they do this calculation task for a period of time, and then we ask them those letters again, and they have to repeat those letters back. Question, okay, how long did that test take? Answer, that test is usually 10 to 15 minutes in that range. Question, okay. And so correct me if I'm wrong. You say it to, like you did in this case, the defendant, you gave him 3 letters. Answer, yes. Question, okay. And what do you tell him? I'm going to give you 3 letters. Answer, and you need to count backwards. When I knock, you tell me those letters. Question, okay. And so the first test was 9 seconds. Answer, they're interspersed. The first time period is a 9-second, well, there are 9-second time periods, 18-second time periods, and 36-second time periods. They're interspersed. It's not that we give only the 9s, then the 18s, and then the 36s. Question, okay, I stand corrected. But that's what you do. He has to remember the 3 consonants, the 3 letters, correct? Answer, correct. Question, and so there's 9 seconds, there's 18 seconds, and 30 seconds. Excuse me, and 36 seconds, correct? Answer, correct. Question, okay. So he did better on the 18 seconds than he did on the 9-second, correct? Answer, slightly. Question, okay. And he did better on the 36 seconds than he did on the 18 seconds, correct? Answer, again, he did slightly better. Question, okay. And so on the graph, below 2 standard deviations, you use the 9 seconds and the 18 second subtests that were below the 2 standard deviations, correct? Answer, the 9-second and the 18-second were below the 2 standard deviation. Question, right. Answer, cut point. And the 36-second was below 1.5 second, 1.5 standard deviations. Question, okay, that's fine. I mean, you showed the jury the graph, it's there. But the 9-second and the 18-second were, you put them on the graph below the 2 standard deviations, correct? Answer, that was where his score placed him. Question, right. And that's where you put it on the graph, correct? Answer, yes. Question, okay. So on page, I guess it's 32 of your PowerPoint, Dr. Connor, you made a comparison, and maybe I can share this with you. So we can put it up on the screen for everybody to see. Aaron, I think it's 32. Aaron, it's 32, I think it's on the PowerPoint. Question, doctor. Question, okay. Doctor, can you see that okay? Answer, yeah. That was not in the PowerPoint that I presented yesterday. Oh, I take that back. I lied, sorry. It's not slide 32, but okay. Question, which slide? Answer, I see it. Question, which slide do you have? Answer, from the PowerPoint from yesterday, it was slide 27. Question, all right, then I'm sorry. Question, but whatever, you recognize this, right? Answer, yes. Question, and you talked about it yesterday, correct? Answer, yes. And you did this comparison, right? This is your graph. You did this, right? Answer, correct. Question, so If you look at the ways verbal under intellectual functioning, answer yes. Question, the defendant scored a 93, correct? Answer correct. And then on the nonverbal, on the RIAS, did I pronounce that right? RIAS? Answer. The nonverbal on the RIAS? Question, RIAS, yes. I'm sorry, the RIAS. Answer yes. Question, was 60, correct? Answer no. The verbal on the RIAS was 60. Question, excuse me. The verbal on the RIAS was 60, correct? Answer yes. Question, so he did 93 on the ways, and on the RIAS he did 60? Answer correct. Question, and if you go down one, the nonverbal on the ways was an 82, correct? Answer yes. Question, okay, and the nonverbal on the RIAS was a 101, correct? Answer yes. Question, with an IQ test, you can't fake good, can you? Answer, it's hard to fake good on testing. It's very test. Question, how about an IQ test? If I wanted to be an astronaut and I need a 140 IQ, how could I fake it? Answer, if you study it, you can, but otherwise, no, it would be very difficult to. Question, so you think you can fake IQ good? Answer, if you study the answers, I guess you can. Question, okay, moving on. You talked about yesterday about the DSM-5TR, right? Answer yes. So the DSM-5TR has not established or accepted any criteria for the NDPAE, correct? Answer, not correct. There were general criteria that were discussed in DSM-5 which carried over into DSM-5TR. Question, are you talking about the criteria in the back of the book under? Answer, no. Question, what page are you talking about where it's accepted criteria? On page 99 of the DSM-5TR, I think it was 86 in the DSM-5, it has general criteria. It doesn't get into specifics. Question, okay, so then I stand corrected. The DSM-5TR has not established or accepted any specific criteria for NDPAE, correct? Answer, as they hadn't had it in the DSM-5, they had general criteria in the diagnosis section. Question, okay, answer, in the front section of the book. Question, okay, whether it's DSM-5 or the DSM-5TR, the DSM has not established or accepted any specific criteria for NDPAE. Isn't that correct? Answer, it has not established them. Question, so as pointed out, and I think you even mentioned it yesterday, NDPAE is listed in the back of the book under conditions for further study, correct? Answer, neurobehavioral disorder associated with prenatal alcohol exposure, unfortunately using the same acronym, is cited in the back of the book under conditions for further study. Yes. Question, okay. And on page 903 of the DSM-5TR, it says, and you correct me if I'm wrong, the task force ultimately determined that there was insufficient evidence to warrant inclusion of these proposals as official mental disorders in section 2, which is the main section, correct? Answer, correct. Question, these proposed criteria sets are not intended for clinical use. Only the criteria sets and disorders in section 2 of the DSM-5TR are officially recognized and can be used for clinical purposes. Isn't that what under conditions for further study indicates? Answer, it does say that on page 903. Question, okay. Now, you testified that you didn't give any tests for malingering, correct? Answer, not correct. Question, okay, tell me what you did. Answer, I gave multiple tests that look at performance validity, multiple tests throughout the course of the day, both myself and Dr. Black. One end of the spectrum of performance validity testing outcomes would be assessing for malingering. Question, okay, so your tests were for effort, correct? Answer, correct. Question, okay, are you saying that someone could not give good effort and malinger at the same time? Answer, if they're not giving good effort if they're giving such poor effort, that can end up with the determination that the person is malingering, yes. Question, all right. So if you give me, listen, Mr. Satz, I want to give you a test, and I do it rapidly. Give you numbers, count back from 100 by sevens. I can purposely give you false answers and still be giving you good effort, correct? Answer, a counting backwards test is not a performance validity test. But if they're giving poor effort on these performance validity tests, then that's indicating that they're not working hard. And potentially, at the extreme, they're attempting to malinger their testing that's going on at that time. Question. Okay, are you saying then, and I'll ask you the same question, you can't show good effort and purposely give false answers? Is that what you're saying? Answer, not on that performance validity test, no. Question, okay. Answer, if you're not giving good effort, it could be suggestive of malingering. Question, well, I'm saying if you are giving good effort and purposely giving wrong answers. Answer, the way that these performance validity tests are established and set up is that they need to give correct answers in order to assess for good effort. Question, okay, isn't it standard practice in a forensic evaluation, psychological or neuropsychological, to give malingering tests? Answer, as I do. Question, okay, you gave effort tests, right? Answer, I gave performance validity tests. Question, okay, and you're equating them with malingering tests, right? Answer, they can assess for malingering, yes. Question, okay, answer again. As I discussed yesterday, there are two types of validity testing. One is performance validity testing, and the other is symptom validity testing. Question, okay. Answer, because I'm doing neuropsychological testing, I'm looking at performance validity testing. Question, okay. Answer, I'm not worrying about whether he's endorsing psychotic features or things like that. I'm concerned as to whether he's working hard on these tests, so I give performance validity tests. Those tests do assess for potential malingering. Question, okay. So you're saying that you can't work hard to give bad answers, correct? Answer, he's got to get the answers correct in order to do well on these performance validity tests. Question, so you testified yesterday that the state's experts also gave effort tests, correct? Answer, that he also gave a performance validity test. Question, right. And didn't he also give a malingering test? Answer, he also gave a symptom validity test. Question, is that a malingering test? Answer, just like the performance validity test is, the symptom validity test can assess for malingering, but it's assessing for malingering of behavior and mental health issues. Question, okay, we'll have to fight with that. So let's go to this. I want to run this by you. Were you aware that to be accepted on the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas JROTC marksmanship team, that you have to fire 3 pellets in succession at a target the size of a quarter from 10 meters away? And if you're successful at hitting that target the size of a quarter from 10 meters away, 3 times in succession, then they give you a target the size of a nickel, and you have to hit the target with a rifle pellet gun, again, 3 times in succession from 10 meters away. And then, if you're successful at that, then they give you a target the size of a dime, and you have to hit the target the size of a dime 3 times in succession from 10 meters away. And 10 meters away is 32.81 feet, correct? That's almost 10 for basketball. Are you a basketball fan? Answer, not particularly. Question, okay, so I'll skip that then. I was going to tell you that the arc for the 3-point line is about 23 feet. This is almost another 10 feet, just for perspective and distance as to how far away 10 meters are. So were you aware of that? Answer, no. Question, okay. And then you have to learn precision sighting. Were you aware of that? Answer, no. Question, okay. And were you aware that the defendant in this case won a sharpshooter badge? Answer, no. Question, do you know what double tapping is? Answer, I have heard of it colloquially. Question, okay. So when you talk about visual spatial, doesn't that show good hand-eye coordination, the ability to be able to do that? Answer, no, not necessarily. Question, it doesn't? Answer, no. Question, okay. How about visual perception? Doesn't show that either? Answer, the ray complex does include visual perception, but it is perception of a complex information and being able to organize and recreate it. Question, yeah, I know, you told us that. I'm talking about what he did with the pellet gun. Answer, okay. Question, doesn't that show visual perception? Answer, that he's able to perceive a target. Question, hit it? Answer, I assume that he was asked to perceive the target. Question, all right. So when you talk about 1 standard deviation from the mean, and you told Mr. Secor yesterday 84% of the population would do better, right? Answer, yes. Question, okay. So that means 16%, right, would be the 16th percentile. You know, how many people is that just in the United States? Answer, I am not going to be able to calculate that. Question, well, there's approximately 332,278,100 100,000 people in the United States of America alone, right? Would you agree? Answer, okay. Question. So that's over 53 million people would fall into that 16th percentile, correct? Answer, for one score. Question, well, 16th percentile is over 53 million people, right? Answer, I haven't done the math, so I guess, have to take your word for that. Question, okay. Okay, so on talking about the graph, and it was my page 30 in your PowerPoint. It was your graph. Answer, okay. Question, okay. So let's talk about your graph. So you created answer. Would you like me to share that for you so we can all be seeing it at the same time? Question, we could, but I'm going to ask you things that aren't on the graph. If you want me to put it up, I will. Okay, so in the memory domain, you place, well, do you want me to put it up? Because I am going to ask you questions about it. So in the memory domain, you have 11 subtests, correct? Answer, yes. Question, okay, and you did not include on your graph 11 other scores for subtests that were in the average or above average range. Isn't that correct? Answer, I included the scores on this graph that I published on, that are typically used in the assessment of FASD. Question, okay. Answer, I cannot put every single score or sub-item from every single test on a graph. It would be incomprehensible. Question, okay, but all the 11 I'm going to talk about were average or above average. So the California Verbal Learning Test Trial 2, the defendant scored in the 37th percentile. That's an average score, correct? Answer, and it's incorporated within the CVLT Learn score, which I can't point to. It's the very first dot within the memory scale. Question, okay, but the California Verbal Learning Test Trial 2 was not on your graph, was it? Answer, that's correct. Question, okay, and the California Verbal Learning Test Trial 3, where the defendant scored an average score, was not on your graph, correct? Answer, that's correct. It was included as a compilation score with the CVLT Learn, question right, answer, that first dot, question. And the California Verbal Learning Test Trial 4 was scored, but it's not on your graph, and the defendant scored an average score, correct? Answer, yes, question. And that was not on your graph. And the California Verbal Learning Test Trial 5, the defendant scored in the 25th percentile, and that's an average score, and that was not on your graph either, was it? Answer, it was, again, included within the CVLT Learn score. Question, okay. Answer, but no, it was not included independently. Question, okay. And each one of these subtests, doctor, tests something else, right? They test something different? Answer, each one of the subtests is a repetition of the list of words. So they're getting the list 5 times. Question, but they're given for a purpose and they're scored. Answer, and thus the overarching score for that learning portion is the CVLT Learn, which was in the low average range overall. Question, and the California Verbal Learning Trial Test B, where the defendant scored in the 50th percentile, which is an average score, and that was not on your graph either, was it? Answer, that's correct. Question, and the California Verbal Learning Test Short Delay Cued Recall, the defendant scored, sorry? Answer, I'm sorry, you're breaking up a bit. I can't quite hear what you're saying. Question, okay, I'll be happy to repeat it. The California Verbal Learning Test Short Delay Cued Recall was scored, and the defendant scored in the 63rd percentile, which is an average score, and that was not on your graph, was it? Answer, that's correct, because I used the free recalls in the analysis. Question, okay. Answer, and had been used for, question, okay. Answer, 12 years now in the FASD analysis that I used. Question, and the California Verbal Learning Test Long Delay Cued Recall was scored. Answer, yes. Question, and the defendant scored in the 50th percentile, which is an average score, and that wasn't on your graph either, correct? Answer, that's correct. Question, and the California Verbal Learning Test Recognition was scored, and the defendant scored in the 84th percentile, which is an average score, and that wasn't on your graph either, correct? Answer, that's correct. Question, and going to the Wechsler Memory Scale Logical Memory Recognition, the defendant scored within the normal limits, correct? Answer, yes. Question, and that's an average score, and that was not on your graph. Answer, correct. No recognition scores were on the memory graph. Question, and the last answer, they haven't been. Question, go ahead, I'm sorry. All right. The Wechsler memory scale visual reproduction recognition. The defendant scored within the normal limits, which is an average score, and that wasn't on your graph either, was it? Answer correct. Question, okay. And the memory subtest of the Texas Functional Living Scale fell. The defendant scored in the 63rd percentile, which is an average score, and it wasn't on your graph, correct? Answer, it's incorporated into the Texas Verbal Learning Scale overall score. Question, okay. Let's go on to, that was the memory domain. So let's go to the attention domain, where you had 8 subtests, but you didn't include 5 subtests where the defendant scored in the average range, correct? Answer, well, he was scoring the average range on all of the subtests that were put on the graph as well. And there are these scores that are, again, typically included in all of my assessments when I'm looking at FASD as the primary scores for attention. Question, okay. So you administered, and I'm sure it's not related, Connor's continuous performance test, correct? Answer, that's correct, and no, it's not related. Question, right. And on the performance test, the defendant's HIT, hit reaction time block change subtest, the defendant scored in the high average range, correct? Answer, I'd have to look at the form again. Question, 85th percentile. Answer, okay, that's question, high average range? Answer, what was that one for again? Sorry. Question, that was the continuous performance hit, the HIT or hit reaction time block change. Answer, it's HRT. Question, right. Answer, but it was, yeah, that would be about right for the percentile. Question, 85th percentile in the high average range, correct? Answer, yeah, 84th percentile, but yes. Question, okay, that's not on the graph? Answer, no. It never is on the graphs that I publish. I talk about them in reports when I do write reports. Question, okay. Answer, if they are relevant. Question, okay. The continuous performance test, subtest for detectability. The defendant scored in an average range, and that wasn't on your graph either, correct? Answer, that's correct. Question, and the continuous performance test subtest of perseverations. The defendant scored in an average range, and that wasn't on your graph either, correct? Answer, that's correct. Question, and on the continuous performance subtest HRT reaction, interstimulus interval change, the defendant scored in the 73rd percentile, correct? Answer, yes. Question, and that's in the average range, and that was not on your graph either, correct? Answer, that's correct. Question, and the continuous performance subtest of HRT reaction time variability, the defendant scored in the average range, and that was not on your graph either, correct? Answer, that's correct. Question, okay, you can use and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Connor, you can also put the Connor's continuous performance, some of their subtests in the executive function domain, correct? Answer, for most part, no, I wouldn't. It is a pretty solid attention test. Question, right. So my question is that you could have put, or you can tell me you wouldn't do it, the continuous performance subtest into the executive function domain. Answer, I wouldn't. Question, okay, but you can see where someone could. Is that what you're saying? Answer, there might be one score where you might be able to, but I still wouldn't, because that one score is, it says it's perseverations, but really it's hyper-anticipation, responding too quickly. Question, okay, let's go to the executive function domain where you had 32 subtests, correct, that you put on the graph? Answer, I put 32 scores on the graph, yes. Question, and you didn't include 11 subtests that fell in the normal range, correct? Answer, I don't know what scores you're talking about. Question, okay, let's go over them. So before I get into those, you could also put the TOVA subtest under attention into executive function, correct? Answer, the TOVA is a pretty pure attention test. That's its primary goal, is to assess attention. Question, okay. So you could have also placed the TOVA subtest where he scored in the high average and average range in executive function domain, couldn't you? Answer, I would not. Question, okay, could you see where someone else could? Answer, somebody could do whatever they want, I guess, but I certainly would not. Question, okay, let's talk about the subtest. The Tower of London stimulus bound score, the defendant scored within the normal limits, correct? Answer, these are subscores, not subtests. Question, subscores. Answer, and by the emphasis of sub, meaning that they are not the primary scores within a test. Question, all right, whatever you want to call it. Answer, I need to look that up. Question, all right, go ahead. Answer, all right, please, can you repeat that for me? Question, sure. The Tower of London stimulus bound score. Answer, correct. It was not in the graph. Question, an average scored in the average range? Answer, I believe so. Question, and not on the graph? Answer, that's correct. Question, okay, now, you also administered the Iowa gambling test, correct? Answer, correct. Question, and the Iowa gambling test is for decision making, correct? Answer, for rapid decision making and impulsive decision making. Question, okay, of planning? Answer, not particularly. Question, of impulse control? Answer, yes, in that kind of gambling type heated situation. Question, on judgment? Answer, for those sorts of decision makings, yes. Question, okay, so he performed well on the Iowa gambling test, correct? Answer, he did. Question, okay. Answer, and that's in the graph. Question, right. Okay, on the Iowa gambling test, net 1, the defendant scored in the 73rd percentile, which is in the average range, and that was not on the graph, correct? Answer, I only cite the total scores for that test. Question, okay, and on the Iowa gambling test, net 2, the defendant scored in the 45th percentile, which is in the average range, and that wasn't on your graph either, was it? Answer, that's correct. Question, and on the Iowa gambling test, net 3, the defendant scored in the 42nd percentile, which is in the average range, and that wasn't on your graph either, correct? Answer, that's correct. Question, and the Iowa gambling test, net 4, the defendant scored in the average range, correct? Answer, that's correct. Question, not on your graph, correct? Answer, that's correct. Question, and on the Iowa gambling test, net 5, the defendant scored in the average range, and that's not on your graph, correct? Answer, that's correct. It's all encompassed within the total score of the Iowa gambling test. Question, okay, answer, which was in the normal range. Question, okay, but if you put all those average scores and above average scores, it would kind of mess up your percentages, right? Did you add them up? Answer, it would change that, yes, but again, as I say, these are the scores that I include in almost every single case that I do. Question, right, I'm sure. Answer, I don't include these sub-scores. Question, right, I'm sure that's exactly what you do. So you administered the Wisconsin card sorting test, correct? Answer, correct. Question, and isn't the Wisconsin card sorting test a test of reasoning and problem solving? Answer, yes, it is. Question, and doesn't the Wisconsin card sorting deal with concept formation and mental flexibility? Answer, yes, it does. Question, and wouldn't you agree that Wisconsin card sorting test is frequently used in fetal alcohol spectrum disorder to measure planning, problem solving, adaptability, and perseveration? Answer, and I wrote a paper on that. Question, so you agree? Answer, yes. Question, okay. You didn't place 5 Wisconsin card sorting subtests that scored all in the average range on your graph, right? Answer, again, not every single subscore gets put onto this graph as a matter of, question, right? Answer, standard protocol. Question, I think, okay, so on the Wisconsin card sorting total errors, the defendant scored in the average range, and that was not on your graph, correct? Answer, that's correct. Question, and on the Wisconsin card sorting perseverative errors was in the 68th percentile, which was in the average range, and that was not in your graph, correct? Answer, I'm sorry. You're going to have to say that one again. I apologize. Question, that's okay. I need practice. The Wisconsin card sorting perseverative error score, the defendant scored in the average range, and it's not on your graph, correct? Answer, that's correct. Question, and the Wisconsin card sorting categories completed was in the normal range, and the defendant scored in the average range, and that was not on your graph, correct? Answer, correct. And the Wisconsin card sorting failure to maintain set score was within normal limits, and the defendant scored in the average range, and that was not on your graph either, correct? Answer, that's correct. Question, and the Wisconsin card sorting learning to learn where the defendant scored within the normal limits, which is the average range, was not on your graph either, correct? Answer, that's correct, and it never is. Question, Dr. Connor, would you agree that the Wisconsin card sorting test is used primarily to assess perseveration and abstract thinking? Answer, it's to assess abstract thinking. Perseveration is one aspect that could be noted on the test. Question, okay, so do you agree, I'll read it again. Tell me what you disagree with. The Wisconsin card sorting is used primarily to assess perseveration and abstract thinking. Answer, it is used primarily to assess abstract thinking and reasoning. It can also assess, question, okay, answer, not primarily, necessarily, but can also assess perseveration. Question, when I use the word primarily, you disagree with it? Answer, the across the board for all aspects on all parts of the test, yes, I disagree with it. Question, and the Wisconsin card sorting test is also considered a measure of executive function because its reported sensitivity to frontal lobe dysfunction. Do you agree or disagree with? Answer, I agree with that. Question, as such, the Wisconsin card sorting test allows you to assess your client's strategic planning, organized searching, and ability to use environmental feedback to shift cognitive sets, directed behavior towards achieving a goal, and modulate impulsive responding. Do you agree with that or disagree with it? Answer, it sounds like it's out of a document. Sounds reasonable. Question, okay, so you agree with it? Answer, sure. Question, okay. In reference to this case, you didn't read, well, you testified on direct that reading reports is very important to your evaluation, correct? Answer, reading prior evaluations, yes. Question, okay, all right. So it's just important to read prior evaluations? Answer, for the purposes of my involvement in this case, it was to assess for consistency with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. Question, okay. Answer, in order to do that, I need to review prior records that assess and discuss cognitive functioning. So those records are important for me to review, yes. Answer, okay. Did you ask the defendant about the 17 murders he committed at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School on February the 14th, 2018? Answer, I did not. Question, sorry, Dr. Connor. Did you watch the 3 cell phone videos that the defendant made on February 8th and February 11th, 2018? Answer, I did not. Question, did you watch the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas school surveillance video of the defendant murdering 17 victims on February 14th, 2018? Answer, I believe I was shown a version of that. Question, okay, so you saw how purposeful his actions were? Answer, I watched the video. I was not doing it to interpret. Question, did you see how goal-directed he was? Answer, again, I was shown the video by defense so that I would be aware it occurred. And I wasn't watching it for interpretations of behavior. Question, all right. So you can't say whether he appeared on the video goal-directed. Answer, I have no opinion about that. Question, and dedicated to his task? Answer, I have no opinion about that. Question, have you viewed any of the defendant's social media? Answer, no, I have not. Question, have you read any police reports with reference to this case? Answer, no. Question, okay, isn't it true, Dr. Connor, that the best proof of what someone can do is what he actually does and has done? Answer, if you're trying to form a forensic opinion of a person's mental state at the time of an offense, yes, that's not what I'm being asked to do as part of this evaluation in this case. Your Honor, thank you. I have no further questions.
Yes, sir.
You need to hear Denny at the time to answer the question that he's asked.
You no longer need to hear Denny.
That's correct.
Okay. And you're all in agreement if you just raise your hand if you're in agreement with Mr. Benjamin. Okay. All right, thank you. So the bailiff will take you to the jury room to continue your deliberations. Okay, the jurors have been excused.
Not right.
Are you gonna put something?
Yes.
Stand up? Okay, no, I'll go back.
She's not. She didn't sit down.
That's okay.
Just give her a second. Okay, go ahead.
I just didn't hear the court, did the court say that the record reflected all 12 jurors have raised their hand?
I don't remember, but they did.
Okay, that's all I wanted.
I don't remember if I said that. Sorry.
That's okay. But that's the-
I know I checked, did a mental check, but I may not have said it. But for the record, all 12 jurors raised their hand that they were in agreement with the foreperson, Mr. Benjamin, indicating that the information that they were seeking was in the cross-examination, and that any questions that they may have had was answered in the cross-examination that was just read back, and that they no longer needed Dr. Denny's testimony.
Thank you.
Sure. Is there anything else?
No, ma'am.
Okay, we're in recess.